the second show of Behind the Lens Critique, and today we are very excited. We've got Alan Shapiro joining us. I'm Summer Prusner, and I'm in Arizona. I'm a photographer, and we are running this for Colby Brown. As you know, he's got his really great group for critiquing, and we're trying out something new. So let's go into this. Christina?
Great. Hi, I'm Christina. I'm also a photographer from Arizona and been part of the Behind the Lens Critique group since the beginning with Tamara. And I'm just really excited to be able to have these hangouts and grow as a photographer with all the great resources we have here. And next is Sandra Parlow, also another BTL mod.
Hi, like Christina says, I'm part of the moderating team, and I'm just really excited to be on the hangout tonight, especially with our guest, who is pretty amazing. So I'm really looking forward to what he has to say.
Great.
Oh, God. But I have to be articulate and charming? Can I?
Yes.
You don't have...
Because I'm Alan Shapiro, and I'm from New York, and during the day I'm an advertising chief creative officer, which means I critique people all day long. And when I'm not doing that, I'm trying to be inspiring, so I promise I'll be nice today, most of the time. And when I'm not doing that, I like to take pictures. So that's me. Want me to talk more?
Great. No, you're good.
That's
You're
awesome.
good. Okay, so today I'm going to be the one who's sharing the desktop. Our first one up is by Brandy Polier. Oh gosh, I hope I am not just butchering
no, you're
her
going to
name
mention
right there.
names? Now I'm going to get decircled. Now
No, you're not.
No,
you're not.
you won't.
Oh,
It will
my
be just
God.
fine. Yes, our first one's by Brandy. So here, let me screen share that real quick. You guys make sure that I get this right. Is it working?
The starfish.
Yes, the starfish.
Okay, I got to make it big. So here, let me start with a caveat for everybody. Critiquing photos is more a subjective thing than an objective thing. We all know that, but I just want to remind people. You know, I'm always learning, just as everyone is. So what I like to joke about is if you ask 10 creative people for their opinion, you'll probably get 20 different opinions. So Brandy and everyone who's to follow, don't take this personally and know that it's just one guy's opinion right now. So as I look at this, first thing I think we all need to remember to clean our lenses a little bit. There seems to be a little bit of a dust spot over by the tentacle. I do like that it's off-center. I love how the arm is leading me toward the body or away from the body, depending on how we're looking at it. But other than that, I'm wishing that there was a little bit more detail that I could see. I'm wishing that there was a little bit more, perhaps, color. And you know, that's a very challenging thing depending on the conditions and the camera you're using. So as I look at this, what I would suggest you do is, and maybe it's something for the show, is have people submit maybe an image or two or three, or just look at how we might, the different ways you might want to look at this image. You know, personally, I'm questioning whether we couldn't have cropped off a little bit more on the right-hand side. I'm wondering if we had moved in for a much more extreme crop, for instance, you know, sort of like a center rectangle where we just see a little bit of the arm coming in, or maybe even cropping it from the bottom right up so that it's almost like this ominous tentacle coming in from the top right, that it might have given a more dramatic feel to the entire image. As it is now, it's just, you know, it's nice. I don't think it's a stellar image, though. So that's
Alan, what would you think about cropping it from the left in? So maybe the focus was more on the tentacle coming out.
Yeah, well, let's see. That's what I'm saying. So if I look at, as I'm looking at it, I see that the body of the starfish is on the left-hand side, and the tentacle, the arm, is extending to the right.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm wondering, one, if we just do a much tighter crop in on the arm from the right, you know, sort of just draw a proportional rectangle from the bottom right corner up to maybe right before where the tentacle joins the body. I would like to see something like that, just to see how that works. I would also like to see kind of a central rectangle around the starfish. And then I'd also just maybe look at an 8:10 proportion crop. This looks like it's full frame right out of the camera. Just to eliminate a little bit of the emptiness of the background. Either that, or if there's more background, maybe crop off a little bit of the body. I'm just seeing this great white expanse of the body, and because there's not that much detail, because it's very white on white. I mean, it's not that it's overexposed at all. I just think that it could have used a little either clarity or sharpening, depending on the post-processing skills of Brandy. So that's my 2 cents.
I think for me, what I really like about this is I like how detailed it is, but I don't like how the brown kind of blends into the brown of the background, the brown of the starfish into the brown of the background.
Yeah.
And I think that would have probably helped it pop a little bit more too.
Yeah, one of the things I like to play with, and again, I don't know if this is just a critique, but depending on the skills of the person, you can do it in either Camera Raw or even in Lightroom, is looking at a little bit of a curves adjustment to see if there's any more color that you can bring out of either the background or the foreground. You could also go in and you can do some lab processing, which could result in some more interesting colors emerging. Again, that's I don't want to get into discussions of techniques that are beyond people's skill sets, but
Right. I also kind of wonder, because there's a lot of detail, if it might, even though I'd hate to do it in some ways, if black and white might make it pop a little bit more because of the detail on the starfish.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Christina. You know me, I love doing black and white, especially with macro photography. So I think that'd be a wonderful thing to explore. Great point.
That might be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much detail as I look and zoom in on the sort of the bubbles, or the I don't know what they are, but if you look at the sort of crevasse of the tentacle, there's these round orbs that are very interesting to me, and I just want to climb in there and see what's going on.
Totally. I agree. That's why I'm thinking maybe black and white might be fun to play with that, because it would bring some of that out.
Okay, let me get to our next one, maybe. I'm still figuring this out. Okay, this one is by
Dave Adams.
Dave Adams.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, Dave, I have to tell you, this made me smile and clap my hands and just laugh out loud. This is one of those shots that I think a lot of macro photographers sit around and dream about, and when they see it happen, it's almost like, oh my God, is that really going on right in front of me? I think it's charming. Just everything about it makes me smile. In terms of a little bit, and I'm going to come back to some stuff, in terms of a little bit of a technical critique, I think there's some shadow detail that you could have brought out in the body of the bee, for instance. I think if you look at the top edge toward the right, I think you've got a few extra little, what are they, pistils or stamen or whatever those dangly things are, that I think you can either clone out or get rid of. They just don't really add, and I find them a little bit distracting. But otherwise, this is just a charming image. Really, really well seen. I think one of the skills that macro photographers need to have is patience, right? And so just sitting around and waiting, and as you're watching all the insects buzzing around because they're so interesting, having the skill to just sit and wait and see what happens is something that I encourage a lot of people to do. And clearly you did it, and whether it was by accident or intent, you got a winning photo here.
Yeah, I love this shot because you're right. It just makes you smile. It's a happy image, and it's great. I'm allergic to bees, but I love to photograph them, so it's always a challenge for me to not freak out and to try to wait for a moment like this. So I would never get this kind of image, but I think it's really great. I agree with cloning out at the top with the little bits, because they do distract a little bit, but.
Yeah, the other thing, as I'm looking at it is, maybe explore a square crop, just for something different. Again, that I find a lot of photographers either love square crops or sort of shy away from them for whatever the reason.
Right.
Because you've got so much nice background softness going on to the left of the bee, whose head, who's either gorging or whose head is stuck. And again, that's the thing about this image. I make up these wonderful stories about it, and I think that's what I look for in something like this. And the background just complements it nicely. Nothing gets in the way except those couple of things up top.
And
it's
I
hard
love
to
the
catch
fact.
bees.
Oh, it is. But I love the fact that there is a flower that's in, in blurred out in the background. It really, to me, it adds to the image. That it wouldn't. I mean, it would still be a great shot if there was nothing behind it. But I like that there's a little pop of color.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think that adds to it. It makes it feel more natural, right?
Yeah. I'm sorry, Sandra. Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. I was just going to say it's hard to catch bees. They're really fast, and they don't just sit still for very long. Like, I chased bees all last summer. I don't think I got one good one. So.
They do when their head is stuck in a flower.
They stay still real well when their head's stuck.
Yeah.
And I would just, this is one of those things, Dave, if you have, a little bit of a backstory, I would love to know if she stayed like that, or if it was just a momentary thing and, you were quick with the shutter.
Fantastic timing, yeah. I got a bee shot this weekend, but it was really cold here in Phoenix, and so he was sleeping, and that's like the only time I've gotten a decent bee shot, so.
Yeah, or if just what I do is I walk around in the garden with bug killer. And, I just give them, no, not to kill them, just to give them, like, a little bit of a threatening spray, like a little bit.
Yeah, like stun them.
Behave or I'll spray you with this.
Spray, yeah.
Okay. Our next one, let me pull that up, is by Sui O.
Oh.
And this one, here it is.
Oh, you see, it makes my heart go pitter-pat, doesn't it? I mean, I think this is one of those things, you're either, as a macro photographer, you're either looking and discovering all these wonderful details that exist, and you're spending time laying down and just getting real close and seeing what you see through your lens that you wouldn't normally see with your eye because of the foreshortening, because of the shapes and the compression that you're getting through a macro lens. So this is about the eye of the photographer, and here I think Suio did a marvelous job. I love the shape. It's romantic. I love the colors of the green and the softness of the background. My only question, really, it's not really a criticism, is how different croppings might affect the drama of the image. I think right now it feels a little lonely, and that's not a bad thing, because again, as image makers, we're looking to evoke some sort of feelings in our viewers who are sharing the experience, and so the amount of white of background really makes this diminutive and makes me sort of sad a little bit. And I wonder if it weren't cropped much tighter, if it wouldn't just change the whole feeling of the image. It would just be this big green happy heart. And again, that's a subjective call. It's not a criticism. It's just another way of looking at things. From a technical standpoint, what I'm looking at is it's hard to tell from the screen again, so forgive me because it may not be in the final image, but it looks like the background is either grainy or there's something going on in the background that just doesn't feel right, but I think that can be fixed in processing. That's an easy Lightroom adjustment. So really nice.
Yeah, I love this one. I always struggle with macro work because I haven't been doing it that long, but how much of it exactly to get in focus? Like what looks good to me and what's actually appealing to other people? And this one is just, to me, is just perfect. I think that it really influences or it emphasizes the shape of the leaf and the heart. And this might be a good one for a square crop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And again, it doesn't have to be centered. In fact,
right.
I'm very
exactly.
to off-center, and but absolutely. It also might be very interesting in a more dramatic black and white or just a monochromatic treatment. But again, that's totally different. And I just encourage people to look at at iterations just to explore what's possible within an image. So that's a totally separate exercise.
Right. And that can be kind of interesting, too, because I know that I have images that it's like, oh, I love it in black and white, and I love it in color. I don't know which one to go with. That's when it's good to post to Google Plus and just be like, which one, people? Which one speaks to the group? Get kind of a consensus.
Absolutely. Another interesting thing as a macro photographer is what, I'm not sure if this was handheld or if it looks like it was handheld just because of the amount of softness, but if there was a tripod involved, looking at a sequence of images where you're pulling the focus and seeing what changes within an image. I mean, right now we're getting, a very clear heart shape in the very extreme front of the leaf. As you either stop down and increase your depth of field, or keep a shallow depth of field, but just focus on different parts of the image, very different things emerge, and that's something that would encourage people to look at and almost think of as triptychs or diptychs and sequences of images.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah, really cool. See, this speaks.
Okay, our next one is Andy Gray. Sorry. Trying to pull it up. Sorry, guys.
This is Alan Shapiro all over it.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
I saw this and I said, ooh, Andy, all right. It's funny. I look at this and part of me wants to go, oh, hell yeah. And then the other part of me is wondering how it would look if the highlights if there was a little bit more clarity in the highlights, if the exposure were stopped down a little bit. Because I find that this is one of those things where I want to peer into the seed head or the blossom as it's opening up. There's an air of mystery in that dark area, sort of right inside that I like. But there's a curiosity in me that wants to see if there's anything going on in there. So maybe opening up the shadows would be an interesting exercise. Again, not a criticism. My criticism would be just to look at your exposure, your highlight exposure, and see if you can't pull a little bit more detail out of it. But otherwise, I think the composition is wonderful. Here again, we've got a square image, which you either like or you don't. In this case, I think it really contains the image very nicely. It's got just the right amount of space around it. I will say, Andy, that you've got to take a closer look. I see a little dust spot over there by the bend of the stem. That's something that, again, I don't know if we're posting this very quickly, but this is such a nice image that I would encourage you to go back in and, just really make it perfect. The other thing I would ask you to look at, Andy, is, you've got an interesting sort of bronzish monochrome here. I would like to see it in sort of a cyanotype, and I'd also like to look at it in, more of a, I want to say sort of a yellow tone. I don't know. Is that an ambrotype? I forget. Or
Yeah.
But again, just totally subjective. I really like this, and that's what I got.
Oh, I want to add something now. I want to say that I really like this one too. The only thing, there's only a couple of things that kind of bother me about this image is that there's a real heavy blown out spot right here that I think you might be able to get back if you do a little bit of burning. And then this spot right here, because it's not the same as the rest of the edge, it keeps drawing my eye there. But I do have to say that I love this image.
That's like the stray hair on an old woman's chin.
Maybe so, but it's the stray hair that's, there's,
it's
if
funny,
I'm going to be that nitpicky about it, it's a great image.
Yeah, I mean, my eye was drawn to that, Tem, and I looked at it and I debated, is that good, is it bad? I think sometimes, and I'm very guilty of this, we tend to make our images either too perfect. And this is one of those things, I don't know, I was in the city today and maybe I just ran into a couple of too many old ladies who just needed practicing or whatever, or tweeting. And so this just felt normal to me. This is,
Well, I think for me it's the stray hair on the side. until you notice it, it doesn't really bother you. But then once you notice it, like my eye just goes to it. And so for me, I would want to take it out because for me, it's a distraction. But you don't notice it right away. But then when you really look at the image and take it in, that's when I discover it. And I was like, oh, it just, and mainly because, and maybe if you just did a little bit of burning or something, you could just take it down a little bit. But there's a little highlight at the end. But
Absolutely.
I love this image, and I love the way that the flower moves through the image from the stem all the way to the point, and it feels like it's coming at you, and it really gives you a lot to look at and comes through the image.
Yeah, there's an incredible sense of motion in this, isn't there? You know, and depth, and I love that in a two-dimensional image when you really can feel the space, and this one does that. You know, a quick exercise again is to just make a couple of copies of this in whatever your processing program of choice, whether it's Lightroom or Photoshop, and just and create 4 copies and just take the exposure all the way down. And at whether it's a third or a half stop at a clip, and just see what starts to happen to an image like this as you really drop the exposure, and what happens, how the drama increases or decreases, and then make a decision there. And again, depending on your skill set, you can always then marry multiple exposures and really play with it.
Right. I love the tone of this photo. I love the way it moves through. The color person in me, I just want to see it in color too. Like I want to know what color the petals are possibly. You know what I mean? Like it may just really be an image that looks really great in black and white or sepia or this tone, but I want to know what color the petals are. You know, I mean, because I can see it as a green, and I don't know. To me, it might almost be more exciting that way. But I mean, this is something that I would want to like hang in my, in my bedroom or something. It would be. I think it's a great piece.
Yeah. Yeah, this really speaks to me. So.
Okay, our next one is by Kim Troutman. Sorry, guys, I just totally cut you off.
No, you're fine.
It's okay. Are we not talking fast enough, Tamara?
Oh, you're fine. You're doing just fine. Oops.
Tamara's like, all right, we're moving on.
I'm sorry.
Can you make it bigger for me? There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
This image, it's funny because I know Kim just through the scavenger hunt, I think. And I saw this image, and I know her profile photo. And this image just made me think of her profile photo. She's got this great big grin on and, big shiny, and I just look at it, and it's happy. This is just such a happy image. I love the colors, first of all. I mean, you can't help but notice the colors. But then, obviously, what makes this is the positioning and the clarity of the water droplets. And I just think there's something very magical about that one image that's balancing that one droplet in the center as the other one is just about to, sort of like jump off the edge of the cliff or roll gently to its demise. Again, I tend to make up stories. As the 2 lemmings behind it, if you sort of move up to the left, they're just sort of about to go to the same place. So this is one where, it's clearly about the color in the water droplets. Part of me wants to know what would have happened if you had stopped down, held a little bit more detail in that, that wonderful yellow puff in the background, just a little bit more. It might not have worked. So again, not a criticism, but just a question that I have as I look at this image. There is a little bit of a bokeh glow right to the center of that yellow center of the flower that I find a little distracting. There are clearly others in the petals as you move to the outside. I find them a little bit less distracting. Again, depending on your skill in post-processing, you can look at cloning those out or minimizing those. But I definitely find that the one by the yellow is, that needs to go. Again, but this is a charming image. Let's see. It's funny. I look at things like this, and I hold my hand up, so I explore different crops visually. This is one that would be very interesting. I don't know that you could make it exactly, but if you just really zoomed in and did a square crop right around the purple leaves and the water drop, sort of eliminate the yellow and everything else, you might get a totally different image in this. But Kim, I think you did a lovely job.
Yeah, I love the water drop in the center. It's just gorgeous, the clarity, and I would want to crop it square and take off the bottom, because to me the white is distracting. Like it takes my attention away from the water drop a little bit.
So would you eliminate everything but that center petal and, the two droplets on the lower petals?
Well, I would want to try to keep the two droplets on the lower petals. But if you could take up from the bottom a little bit, I just think there's so much white below that for me, like my eye, it gets drawn to that because it's brighter. It's brighter than the water droplet to me in the image. But yeah, I don't know that that would work. But maybe just taking a little bit off of the bottom for me would.
Yeah, I didn't mind that. As you mentioned it, I sort of wonder if you couldn't, that top little bit of white right above that top petal. I wonder if you hadn't cropped it right there at that sort of where it extends off the stem, cut that, because again, I find the yellow without the detail, the center of the flower, you've got a little bit of shadowing coming in that on the left-hand edge. But I think you maybe can take a little bit off the top. Again, we're nitpicking now because I think this is
no, totally. Totally, but it is fun to think of options that you can do with the pictures. There are usually different ways that you can crop it, and that's kind of fun to explore.
And I think that's a testament to the photographer. So if you have a bad image, I think the first inclination is to wonder if oh my God, let's fix the crop. And I think in this case, it's exploring how to make it even more interesting. So this is a very different kind of image than, say, like the starfish. Again, not to pick on that. I'm sorry, Brandy, but I just think that not your best work, because I've seen some of your other work, and there are better ones there. So.
Yeah, I want her to edit it in black and white so I can see the. I want to see the starfish in black and white.
Right.
Okay, guys. Next we have Grayson Hartman and his spider and iris.
Oh, you see, this is another one like the bee. And having a very large garden, I tend to have a lot of insects, and as much as spiders creep me out, this to me is almost like the killer caterpillar coming after the spider, sort of the turn of events, even though it's on an iris. I love this. I think there's just something very interesting and provocative about the flower coming at you, the tentacles, and then the spider to me is kind of fleeing. I think the exposure can be taken down a little bit. I think it's a little bit hot overall. I would like to see how it would look with the blown out whites toned down a little bit of exposure correction there. And I also wonder if there isn't just a little bit too much blue at the bottom. I think right now the focus of this is the spider and the texture of the iris itself. And right now there's just a little bit too much foreground for my taste. Again, personal preference. But this makes me smile. I'd also look at toning down the exposure on the spider a little bit. Sort of the hot spots on the leg and whatever.
I think it's amazing capture. I love the color to it. That's what's really great about it. And the spider, I could never get that close to one to photograph it like that.
Because when you do, they jump at you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Especially the wolf ones.
Right.
Yeah, or the little jumping spiders. They're entertaining. I've chased one or two of those around and been like, okay, no, I'm out. But I just love the color, the yellow and the flower and the spider and the purple and how the green spider pops off of it. I think it's a great photo. I'd never be able to do it.
I usually mute every. Oh, sorry. I usually mute every spider that comes into my stream because I just can't look at them. But this one's actually very pretty. The colors really make it that way.
The one thing that I really like about this is I like all of the lines, from the lines in the iris petal, and then the lines of the little iris, what is that, like stamen? Is that what that is? And then the lines of the spider legs.
The iris tongue.
The tongue. So then would that be taste buds?
Yeah, those
are really,
yes. Exactly. But I have to agree with you on bringing the exposure down a bit, because it really did make those whites. Mm-hmm. It almost brings your eye more to those whites than it does the spider in where it should be.
Exactly. Yeah. This is a wonderful image.
Okay. Our next one is, head over there. We have Maurice Loy. Maurice Loy. And I actually think this is, oh, okay, so there's actually 3 here.
Okay.
Let's start
So
with this one.
what I would do,
I'm sorry. Start with the first.
Okay, so if this, I think this is the best of the bunch. But you know what? Can you do something for me? Can you scan through all 3 of them? Because I want to sort of compare and contrast.
Sure. So we've got this one.
Yeah.
And then this one.
Yeah. Okay.
And then this last one.
Okay. So this last one for me is like Ikebana, right? You know, it's very minimalist, and I think I like the lines of the 2 stems, and I like the shape of the flower. I think there's a little bit of extraneous detail if you look at the bottom left corner. You know, I think that can be cloned out, and also the very top. I find that distracting. I also wonder if there isn't more color that could have been pulled out with some, you know, just better processing, again, depending on the skill set here. I also find that it's a little overexposed. I would like to see a little bit more detail in the flower heads or the seed heads or whatever those are. So for me, this is the second best of the 3 images. Maybe even the best. I'm sort of going back and forth. If you go to the one that we were just on, Tamara, and then we can...
This one?
Yep.
Okay.
This one for me, just, I don't know, something about it, it just, it doesn't really work. I find myself not knowing whether I should look at the foreground image or the background, which is out of focus, but very distracting. So I would either, you know, tone that down, or, you know, I think this is a case where just moving with the camera and, you know, looking for a different point of view of this might have benefited. And then the last one, I think, is either my second or my first favorite, the bright, colorful one. Here, you know, I love what's going on. I love the detail that I'm seeing in the seed heads, and especially contrasted with the softness of the background. I mean, clearly there's a, you know, it's of the same image, and it really is just an interesting study in detail versus softness. There's a lot of energy going on in the background. I imagine the wind blowing, and you know, I can hear nature moving and breathing in this, and I like that about this image. I find that your point of view on that particular branch, it feels like there's a few too many seed heads for me. I wish it were a little bit more minimalist, because I want to look and enjoy each of those, and right now they just feel very bunched together. Again, I don't know what was available to you to shoot, but and then the last thing is, you know, I think the crop, it feels very centered. I love how the branch is leading me from the lower left up into the center, but it feels a little bit too centered from a mass standpoint, and I wonder if you didn't take off a little bit of the extra blue to the right of the image, whether you couldn't have looked at a more 8x10 crop and then even taken off a little bit of the top, so you just made it a little bit tighter in on what you wanted our eye to look at. So I think this and the first one are the 2 most successful. I love the colors here, and part of me, seeing this in the same sequence as the others, part of me wants to know if you couldn't have the same color palette in that Ikebana image that was the first one as you do here, because I think that would really be very special. You know, again, it might have been a very different time of day. It might have been just a totally different weather condition, but this one suffers by comparison from a color standpoint. So.
Yeah, I love the blue in the background in this one. So I think that's.
I was just going to say about the blue one. Sorry, Christina.
No, I'm sorry. I stepped up.
I was just going to say the only thing that bothers me about this one with the blue background is that down in the right-hand corner, there's that really bright piece of bokeh from like a branch or something, and that one kind of keeps pulling my eye away over to that corner, even though it's almost covered up by the little arrow thing there. But that's the only thing that really bothers me about this one.
Yeah, that's why I cropped that whole like, inch or 2 off and be done with it. You know,
I
this
think
is
an 8x10
as a photographer about, you know, when trees bloom, because there's so much depth to a tree. You know, even more so than as a macro photographer when you're working with a single blossom or bud. And, you know, it gives you an opportunity to walk around. You know, I've got a lot of flowering trees in my yard, and I'll spend, hours just staring at a branch from several different angles and then move on to the next one and watching what happens when the wind changes and when the light changes. And I think for me, it becomes a very therapeutic kind of exercise. And then I find myself just taking hundreds of shots of a single branch to see what happens in the different lighting conditions. And I think that's an opportunity for people who have trees like this to really explore the same thing. It's, almost a very Zen-like meditation exercise for a photographer. So if you have that opportunity, I would look at it. I think we all tend to want to photograph many different subjects, but I think there's a very powerful exercise in spending considerable time with a single subject matter and really seeing what you can pull out of it. I think that's a real test to a photographer's eye. So Maurice, I would challenge you to do that.
Really? Maybe in a week or so they can come back with revised images or something.
No, tomorrow, Maurice. Come on. Why not?
Yeah, tomorrow.
Where are you? Go out right now and...
Right now. Even though it might be dark where you are, go out there with a light.
Yeah, use a flashlight, because that's part of that Zen exercise. Remember the Karate Kid, wax on, wax off? Just go for it.
Exactly. Hey, we had fun over the weekend with LED lights, didn't we, Tamara? So.
Oh, yes. Lots.
Create your own light.
And now we have Kimmo Vornanen. Oh, I hope I'm saying this one right. Kimmo Vornanen's photo.
Yeah.
Let's pull that one up, and let me get the details for you. There you go.
Cool. I love shots like this. I love them when I see them in a sequence of other shots. So as I look at this on its own, the color draws me in. I get a great sense of depth, and I immediately think of the best fireworks displays I ever saw. And so it just always captivates me when I think of what's going on in miniature beneath our feet. So I love an image like this. I love the depth of tones, the strong blacks, and the very restrained processing here while still being on the vibrant side. I think there's enough detail that I'm seeing in the very tips of the whatever they are, the stamen or the pistils, or biology was way too long ago for me. But this image just really, it tickles me, and I like that a lot. I'm wondering what, unless you're shooting with a Hasselblad and it's a square format, I'm wondering what the rest of the image, was, but again, that's just a photographer questioning, what else is there, because it's such a marvelous little moment in time. So I really like this. Beautiful reds.
I really like this one too. It's because of the reds and then the details, and it looks like a firework to me. But what I am seeing, and I don't know if you guys can see this on the screen or not, is like right here you can see movement trails.
Oh, you're right.
All over. And that is my only nitpicky thing. And I know that her ISO speed was at 400, and then her exposure was at 1/6 of a second. So I'm sure that there was wind, or it could have even been her breathing to make it move, because those things are so.
Yeah, that's a.
Yeah.
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 I kind of wonder what it would look like had it been on a perfectly still day, without having those little trails in there.
Wow.
Or maybe you could just clean up the trails, because I think probably the movement does add to the rest of the image, but if you cleaned up the trails on the little, pieces of pollen.
I think where you began, where you were pointing in that sort of mid to lower left quadrant, I think those seem more noticeable. And but again, it really depends on, the person's post-processing skills and how good they are with a clone stamp, or, things like that.
And it could be something, you could even go in the other direction with this and slow it down just a little bit more and make them more obvious, and then it becomes a completely different abstract kind of macro.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
This is another one where that exercise of sort of pulling focus through the image, it would be an interesting thing to explore, just to see what shows up as you're focusing on the very tips, and then focusing a little bit deeper, and then focusing all the way down to the center. I would love to see that in this as a sort of a 3-part sequence.
Oops.
That's cool. It also looks like kind of a something you'd see in outer space, from Hubble or something. And it has,
Yep.
it's not a flower. It's not, it could be fireworks. It could be something from space. I think I really like it. And I think maybe if you just cleaned up a little bit of the trails there,
yeah,
that would
or
fix that issue. But
I think
go ahead.
Chemo needs to go and find a tiny little, like an aphid or perhaps a baby yellow jacket, and place it delicately inside, so that it becomes sort of the center of this little, cosmic universe. So that would be my challenge to Chemo. Go find a baby bug of a contrasting color and get it to play for you.
That would be really cool. But I do like the movement in the image too. So it's beautiful.
Okay. So he's got a few others, right?
Who does?
Weren't there others in the sequence, or were we just looking at the one?
Let me hear. Let me go back and look. I'll look again.
Yeah, right underneath.
I was just paying attention to this one. Sorry.
Yeah, I think he had 4. This one, this is lovely. I'm gonna speed it up because I think we're gonna want to do our lightning round. I think here that this is one where I would suggest rotating the image and looking at what happens as the interesting lines of the pink petals, and then the center vein, the green vein, is so striking. I find, though, that the 3 little heads are just in the wrong position for some reason, and so as I'm looking at this, I'm tilting my head different ways to see what would happen. But this is one of those shots as a macro photographer where clearly you're looking to focus on one thing, and it's interesting as an abstract. So I like this, just not as much as the first one. This one I think is the weakest of the group. I've just, I feel like I've seen it a zillion times. The color's not spectacular, and the detail just. When I look at a Gerber daisy like this, I either want to see a very special color or I want to see a different point of view. I think it becomes one of those very over-photographed flowers. And here I just, it feels flat by comparison to the others that are in the series. So this is the weak man out. This one is my favorite. This one is like a very colorful flamenco dancer, just doing their final move as the audience applauds. I love this. I think I love the color. I love the movement as my eye is taken from, in this case I start in the center on that wonderful green, and then I flow up that petal to the right. The only thing I would do is perhaps a little bit of a tighter crop, because I'm seeing in the center of the right, I'm seeing a little bit of the petal edge that is distracting to me. Over on the right. Nope, over on the right. Oh, there you go.
Your other right.
The other right. At least on my screen, it's on the right.
Yeah.
Sorry. I don't know my right from my left.
But I think this is just a wonderful image. Just beautiful. I think, again, from a subjective, a little bit of a critical point, I would maybe look at playing with the exposure a little bit, stopping down a little bit, either when you're shooting or in post-processing. I think it feels a little hot, and I'm wondering if there isn't just a little bit more detail that you could have pulled out of the green center part of the flower, the pistil or stamen or whatever that is. But really well done, Kimo.
It's definitely a happy image, that's for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I think, that, and when I was looking at it, when I was looking at the sequence of them, and I saw that next to the red, I was sort of making my own little grouping, for the sort of living room in my head that I would put these in. And that's where the Gerbera daisy just fell out of the sequence. It just wasn't anywhere near as good as the other 3. So.
Okay, and then up next is Cindy Mosso, and she's going to be our last one, and then we're going to start the lightning round with submitted images.
Great.
This is one where I don't want to. I feel bad for that big ass bug because he's about to get his ass bit, and I can't. This is the David and Goliath story played out in miniature. This is, it's charming. It's one of those things where, as a macro photographer, I think, I could see someone just laying on their stomach for hours and, watching where the bugs are going, and then all of a sudden, I guess that's a mosquito, little son of a bitch.
Yeah.
And you just, I think the tendency here is probably just to sort of hold your breath and start clicking and wonder what's going to happen, because there were times when I was just beginning to take pictures, I would get so excited that I would start shaking and jump and I would forget, and then the bug would go away. So this is a bit of timing. I guess that's a little bit of a water droplet down below. Is that? It's hard for me to see.
It looks like it. Yes.
Looks like it. Yeah.
So there's a lot going on in this image. Just in that area, which is why I think I would look at cropping. If you notice, there's a little bit of a triangular shape in the top right, where the green gets darker. I would crop straight down from the edge there to get rid of it, because I find it a little bit distracting. I don't mind how it gradates out, top left and bottom left, but I do find that line a little bit distracting, just given the power of the subject matter. I also wonder if you couldn't pull out a little bit more shadow detail in the bug, again, depending on your post-processing skill, because this is one where I just, and maybe even add a little bit of clarity to the mosquito, just to really make it a hyper-real kind of image, because I think this subject kind of demands it.
I love how the branch comes through.
Sorry.
No, I love how the branch moves through the image. I think that's a great diagonal through it, and even if you took out the top right a little bit, it would still move. And I think it helps your eye move through the image. There's a place for the bug to escape to.
Yeah, you're right. It is it's the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, or it's where he's going to run once he gets his ass bit.
Yeah, that's true. I'm sorry, Tam. Go ahead.
I was going to ask Alan. Her aperture on this one was 2.8. Would you have increased that?
Oh yeah, I think I would have started at like 4. And maybe gone to even, 5, 6.
And that would have brought in that mosquito into more of focus, but it also would have brought that hot spot that I'm seeing right here.
Yeah.
It would have helped dull that out a little bit, I think.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and we haven't spent a lot of time talking about the technical nature, and I thanks for bringing that back to me. I think this is one of those things where if you have the time, you'd really need to spend quality time getting to know what the different aperture settings on your lens does on a given image. And here's one where I think it's very easy for people to go all the way to like an f2.8 on a 100 millimeter macro and leave it there and just move in and out, and they're very happy because it's a very dramatic look. But sometimes just stopping down a little bit will give you that much more detail without sacrificing things, and just opens up a whole nother world. So don't forget to do that, folks.
Okay, guys, so we are getting ready to start our lightning round, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up each of these submissions, and we are each going to look at them, and we're going to take 2 words, maybe 5 tops for each image, and go. Okay, you guys ready? Here we go.
Ready.
This first one's from, oh crap. I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Ketchel?
Ketchel?
I'm sorry, I don't know either.
Don't. I am so sorry. I feel so bad. Okay, hopefully this is right. Ketchel's image.
Oh, it's this charming little alien Valkyrie come to like
exactly.
Introduce himself to us. I think this is wonderful. This is just wonderful. I would love him to just play with the exposure a little bit on the whites. I want to see if there's a little bit more detail. But this, I look at this creature and I want to get to know it and hope it's ticklish and not venomous.
Exactly. Beautiful.
Yeah, I don't have anything I'd critique about it, except maybe I would lighten up this left-hand corner, the bottom one, a little bit.
Lighten it up, or maybe darken.
Or darken the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the other two because it kind of seems off balance.
Yeah, I mean, that's one. Maybe just crop a little bit more off the left-hand side.
Very, very cool. Okay. Our next one is...
Where are its eyes?
I don't know.
Maybe they're on the tops of the antenna. Or whatever.
Photoshop them in. Just Photoshop.
Sort of like alien escargot, because this could be good. A little garlic and.
Yeah.
No.
Sorry.
Oh, and it is not venomous. He just posted on here saying that it's not venomous, so you're safe. You can hug it all you want.
Yay.
Okay. Our next one is Reuben Cone.
Nice detail.
Yeah, nice detail.
Nice
again, this is when I see an image like this, I want to see even more detail because it takes me to a level. And again, depending on, let's see, do we have any EXIF information or metadata?
There it is.
I think depending on the lens, or if you're shooting with an extension tube, I think this is just lovely. It calls for more clarity and opening up some of the shadows and really playing with it. So you reduce, like, for instance, the hot spots on the legs and just really make this a beautiful image. I also think you've got a little bit of extra space over there on the left where that branch is coming in. I don't think we need that. But very interesting, especially if you like bees and bees up close.
Okay. Our next one. I'm going to assume, Christina and Sandra, if you guys have got something to say, you will jump in right on the tail and stop me from going so fast. Okay.
Go ahead.
Me?
Yes.
I would never do that.
No, not you. Our next one is from Julie Jameson.
It's nice to see someone pushing for a little bit more of an abstraction with the macro. Again, whether this was a mistake that was rescued or a happy accident, as I'll call it. There's something very intriguing to me about looking for this sort of composition in nature. Things don't always have to be tack sharp. There's a softness and a lushness to this that I really like. Again, I would play with the crop a little bit. I think there's a little bit too much to the far left. And I might even push it and look at it even softer in parts, again, depending on your processing skill, just to really draw your eye to that center area and take the other parts to an even more abstract place.
Yeah, that's really funny, because I would want to crop from the top right in, so you get rid of the upper right corner and just have, like, the V shape,
so like don't even see the detail in the top of the...
On the top, right.
Mm-hmm.
And have it just be kind of more of like an abstract. Like, you don't know, is it a feather, is it a flower, is it, like, then it really pushes your mind to look at it differently. But that's,
okay, Paula, you're dead wrong.
I'm odd.
This is actually a dandelion, and she shot it with a macro tube, she says.
I saw this one on Floral Friday, and I just loved it because of it's so bright and sunny. I think for me, the thing I would change is up in this corner. It draws my eye, so I would probably combine Alan and Christina's crops and crop right along here, and then crop right along here, and voila.
Yeah, here's an interesting exercise for Julie. I want you to look at this image, and I want you to crop it 6 different ways and post it.
Just for us.
Just for us.
Please, pretty please. No, seriously, I think it's an interesting exercise, and it's something that, again, as someone who likes to teach a little bit, it's an interesting forced exercise if you have a little bit of time.
Yes.
To look at how you can dissect an image and the power of an extreme crop or just different formats. It's worth doing as a creative exercise. Right.
She may have done that. Sorry, she's just saying in the thing. There's more in the album, so I guess we can have a look at that too later.
We'll do that later because we've got to keep going. I'm sorry, Julie.
Yeah,
okay.
I know. Great.
Our next one is boy. It's an eyeball.
This is one where I want to see a reflection in the iris.
Ooh, that would make it real interesting.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I think there's a nice amount of detail. This is one where personally I would really look at sharpening up the is it the eye? What's the blue part? The iris, the forgive
It's
me.
the
Iris is the blue part.
Iris.
Yeah, I would look at sharpening up the iris. So what's the black part? That's the
Pupil.
Pupil.
pupil. And I want to see a reflection in the pupil. It's almost like I want to see something peering
Something
out
there.
at me. But again, that's
Or
a very
a catch
different-
light or something, yeah.
Yeah, something. Because I think it's fascinating to look at an eye up close, especially one where there's a lot of detail. And this just, I want to see more detail.
I think for me, this flashy part, I think he used a flash on this because of how white it is blown right here.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got these real hot spots down here, and that totally distracts me. I think that a reflection and then watching your exposure right here would have been really cool in this. But I love how sharp these eyelashes are right through here.
This is one, you know what, I think a square crop would be fascinating on this, which would crop a little bit of the iris off too, but it would completely get rid of the blown out cornea, I guess. Forgive me.
Yes. Woohoo, look at you!
Yeah, right? I'm pulling it out of my ass today because biology has been way too long.
Okay, our next one is Keith Johnson, and...
Oh, it's going to be a colander, isn't it?
Johnston.
Johnston, excuse me, Keith Johnston. Oops, sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh. This is one, it's hard for me to see from, can you zoom in a little bit, Tam?
I think that's as far as I can get for this one.
Okay, I would, in this case, Keith, I would totally get rid of the little bit of brown glow in the bottom right. I don't mind it in the top left because I think it's sort of like the light that the flower is looking towards. I'm wondering where the focus is.
It's right here along this little itty bitty hairy thing.
Okay. So here's one where I think, I would like to see it, a less shallow depth of field because I think there's something very pretty about the flower and oh, there we go.
Sorry, wasn't supposed to do that.
No, it's okay, but, there was an interesting, I personally prefer the other image. I think this one, it's
You prefer this
interesting.
one?
I appreciate what's happening with the negative space. For me, I find the image you were just on more successful and worth working on.
Yeah.
That one.
Sorry, didn't mean to jump into another one to critique there.
No, it's okay. But, again, sometimes it's, as photographers, we're always shooting groups of photos.
Yes.
And sometimes it's a matter of, how we edit and, we get stuck on one image and then, maybe it's time to look at another image and, work on that and then come back. And that's why I always, when I'm looking at groups of images, I do want to see a group. I don't like looking at a single image.
Yeah, me too. And this one is from, is it Graham?
Graham.
Graham Nix.
Yeah. This is one I would love to see a little bit more detail pulled out of the very tip of the stamen or the pistil. I love images like this where you get, that extreme depth and the softness behind it. This is almost like two separate pictures now because I'm looking at that, the green and the tip over toward the sort of the left half of the image, but then there's just this very lovely curve of the petal on the right, and it's almost like it belongs to a separate image.
Yeah.
So I'd be interested in either cropping that off because I think it distracts me. I don't know where to look first because there's nice aspects of both of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I might look at just dividing that image.
The thing that distracts me on this one is this extra spot right here of burgundy.
In my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Get rid of that. Just crop that right out or clone it out or do
Square
whatever.
crop. Square crop.
But I love that starburst of green. I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's very pretty.
Our next one is by Joe Valley.
Oh, I was shooting anemones today. Or is that no, it's a poppy, right? Yeah, that's an Indian or something poppy. It's an Icelandic poppy. When I love how the orange frames the wildness of the little pointy things, and then you've got that wonderful star. Here what I find is there are just a few too many black specks. I care about them less in the outer perimeter, but when it gets into the center, I would do a little bit of spotting and remove some of the black and also the little bit of the white specks and some of the lines there. I just find it very distracting. But images like this are fascinating to me, and I really like it. Just it needs post-processing help.
That was my first thought as well.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
It's like it's too messy.
And I think I would get rid of that one little yellow piece that's hanging down into the green star, because I just want to see that whole star. I don't know why.
But see, that's something that I wouldn't even attempt in post-processing. I would have just reached in with my tweezers and pulled it out.
There you go.
It doesn't need that. That flower does not need that little piece. We'll just pull that thing out.
Right.
Okay. Our next one.
Another tool to carry in my bag. Tweezers now. Tweezers and a flashlight.
Our next one is our next two, real quick, is Claudio Batista.
Shots like this fascinate me because I've never attempted them, and I just wonder what it's like to sit there and do this and
It's painful.
it's funny.
Yeah.
This sort of reminds me of, when I'm on the advertising side, doing beer shoots and splashes and pours and, the meticulousness of some of the photographers that I've worked with. And, it would just bore the shit out of me. So I would just read magazines in the other room and wait for them to be done. I love the colors. I wonder if it's as sharp as it could be. But, again, I don't know if that's just a technical limitation or what.
I don't think we can see it that sharp on the shared screen. It probably is sharp.
Yeah, I'm looking at it, and it probably could be just a little bit sharper, but the edges are pretty well defined on this one.
And also, there's that center white hot spot over to the center left. I don't mind the ones on the perimeter, but that one bothers me. So
yeah, we'll take that one out.
Worth looking at it, and then also in the vibrator tip. Sorry. You've got, the two little specks right there.
Yeah, there's actually quite a few in there, and that's one of those things that I'm so nitpicky. I would have gone through and spent an hour taking all of them out because it makes it look dirty when in actuality it probably wasn't dirty at all.
Yeah.
His next one, here's his other one. It's the blue version.
I love the color blue, and I love the shapes in the bottom. I just find myself wishing that the droplet were sharper. It's right. I've seen many shots like this, and there's something very soothing about the shape of the surface of the water and the little rise there. But I want something to contrast it, and I think that's where the drop. I don't mind that it's not perfectly circular, but I just wish it were a little crisper and more detail. I also find that in the top right, you've got that one bit of bokeh that, for me, is just a little bit too hot, and I would get rid of it.
Yeah, and if you didn't want to get rid of it, you could very easily...
yeah, that's easy to clone. And also, you've got some of the vertical stripes. I don't know what that's from right in the center that I would get rid of.
Yeah, the color's neat, though.
Yeah, beautiful color. In both of them. Really nice.
Okay, and then our last one for today is by Shannon Myers.
Oh, wow. This is like a hot poker in the ass, and then you've got this little bug.
It's one of the. It looks like it's a pincushion protea.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. And, it's funny because the first thing I see is, all of the is it a protea or a protea, but whatever. And then, I noticed a little bug, and, it's almost like this tightrope walker. I think it's lovely. There's the hotness of the highlights over to the left in the center. Bothers me a little bit. I might take those down a bit. And also, again, it's hard to see where the image ends, so I can't really tell how it's cropped. It looks like there may be just way too much over
all of this right here where my mouse is going is part of the image.
Yeah, again, it's hard to see with the black frame, within that we're looking at. But again, I think this could be cropped a little bit differently. But there's something really charming about it. I love this sort of diminutive creature in this epic world that we discover through a macro lens, and this one calls to me. Nice job, Shannon.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I like how the light is lighting that little bug up. He just looks like he's a star.
Yeah, like in the spotlight, right?
Yeah, totally. That might be fun to play with cropping on that one too. Like I don't know if you could crop from the the left part away. Do you need that? And where he's just hanging out on that branch and the little bit of the black, like infinity going to the side, or
yeah, that's so let's give that same exercise to Shannon. Shannon, crop this like 3 or 4 different ways. Seriously, come on, you owe me.
She has homework.
Okay, guys, we are all out of time. And Alan, I want to say thank you so much for doing the show with us. I really appreciate it.
Oh, I'm sorry I was so nice. I hope I didn't disappoint anyone. I sort of left my New York upstairs. I really wanted to see how many people would decircle me after like an hour, but I'm thinking it's just Brandy right now and everybody else.
No, thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah.
Hopefully you'll come back and visit us again. So.
Yes. And we will do another show probably in a couple of weeks. It kind of depends on our guest critics' schedule as how we schedule these in and out. But keep an eye on the Behind the Lens group page, and we will keep you guys informed. Thank you so much for watching.
Cool.
Great. Thank you.
Bye,
Goodbye.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Now,